Hello everyone! As you could probably guess from the video title, I decided to change from doing full box overviews to focusing on individual characters. I still hope to cover each and every character in Street Fighter Exceed, but hopefully making more shorter videos will be easier for me, rather than being overwhelmed at focusing on 4 fighters at a time. I also decided to go for a more uniform template in this breakdown. Let me know what you think of it, because I'm planning to do the next few characters very similarly. Chun-Li is one of the most recognizable video game characters in history, and her fighting style throughout the Street Fighter series is nearly as iconic as her hair buns and tree trunk thighs. In short, she is the queen of footsies. She typically plays a patient, poking game, zoning opponents out with her long-ranged, dominant normals. I believe this playstyle translates very well into her Exceed iteration. Her whole kit is centered around the 2 pillars of footsies, spacing and continuous boosts, and she is able to perform both aspects with great efficiency. Here, a player's patience will be rewarded with a range dominance that few characters can contest. In Ryu's overview, I talked about how the combination of movement on his UA and simple continuous boosts made him the game's best character to learn footsies. So if playing Ryu is like taking positioning 101, then piloting Chun-Li represents the final exam. Her unique ability allows her to maintain tempo by combining boost and retreat 1 into a single action. We'll look at her particular boosts later, but it's important for her UA to know that they contain small combat tricks, and that some further increase her efficiency by allowing her to strike immediately after playing them. All of these combine to make Chun-Li a tricky customer, being very reminiscent of Ulrich's Move 1 before initiating a strike ability. Although here, Chun-Li doesn't need to commit to an attack to keep dancing. On the subject of Ulrich, Chun-Li does have a lot of similar facets, and I think that a fan of one should really check out the other. Both focus on creating space and setting up strong strikes with boosts, but whereas Ulrich uses high power to end the game in a few big gambles, Chun-Li is more of a slow and steady, high percentage archetype. Back to the UA, I think Chun-Li is a character that wants to exceed as soon as humanly possible. Her starting side will help set up her strikes, but it lacks the combat advantage that many characters start off with naturally. Her Exceed form, however, is frankly insane. With a single Strike Now boost, Chun-Li gets to cosplay Lily with her whole deck. Check out my Lily video or Sagat section in the Ryu box as to why that's so important. But that's not all. Gaining this range advantage on a non-strike boost will put pressure on the opponent to strike herself, or else risk you playing yet another boost and making her situation ever more hopeless. If they do strike, the extra range you can give your attacks generally trumps Initiator's advantage. Last thing, it's important to note that while Chun-Li has many continuous boosts, the retreat up to 1 effect occurs after any boost. This means Chun-Li gets further value out of every boost play, making things like parry, tech, run, and backstep even better options than they usually are. Alright, let's look at strikes. In my cons list, I mentioned that most all of Chun-Li's attacks are variations on dive or assault. While indeed negative due to a lack of versatility and the forced advances giving back space you fought to create, it isn't as bad as it may seem. First, the far advances on Head Stomp and Spinning Bird Kick give Chun-Li many opportunities to be able to escape the corner. Second, their stats help them do things Dive and Assault generally can't. The extra speed and range on Head Stomp and Flipping X Kick, especially combined with her boosts, make them highly consistent at their optimal distances, accomplishing your goal of building gauge and landing damage, even if they don't always trade the best. Spinning Bird Kick is the hero here. It has the speed, range, and power of Dive, yet its stats let it beat out a whole bunch of other normals. The guard and movement help it outtrade Grasp and Cross, and if spaced correctly, the push can make sweeps whiff. All the dives combine, however, with the exception of SBK, to contribute to Chun-Li's clear range 1 weakness. You'll often need to burn quite a few resources to shake a persistent melee fighter, but it will nearly always be worth the cost. Briefly touching on our non-dive strikes, Lightning Legs and Kikoken add little variety while still staying true to Chun-Li's clear strengths and weaknesses. LL is a cross variant with the Fireball trait to recur. Its cost is highly expensive, giving a gauge up and not gaining one on the hit, but in the late game, mashing this with the right boost can secure victories all on its own. Early on, its cross values makes it one of your best options for building the meter to exceed on. Kikoken is a non-recurring fireball with high trade value, yet some vulnerability. A +8 life differential on critical is nothing to sneeze at, and its move 1 can dodge some sweeps and focuses, but its slow speed gives an opponent ample opportunity to get out of its path or simply spike you. Chun has better options at mid-range, and so far I'm using this more at long range, whilst exceeded or closing out games with its block-breaking boost. It should still be used now and again at mid-range though, I think, to add variety to all of the dives. Chun-Li's boosts are relatively simple, but learning which ones to use and when will be one of the first things that separate beginners from those that wish to master this character. There's not a lot of variety here, just pure efficiency. They work well either as single boosts to strike on, or by stacking them on top of each other, though the stat values will lose out in a boost war against those that can still contest your range. The fact that all these boosts contribute to your gauge, and some provide advantage, is essential. They will help you exceed ASAP, make each patiently set up hit worthwhile despite your mediocre power values, and let you leverage your resources in the late game on whatever else is necessary. Recurring critical lightning legs that gains advantage and has a second boost to go to gauge to fuel it? A bit of a chore to set up, yeah, but it's as hilarious as it is legitimately deadly. Hey, like the lightning legs themselves. The last boost I want to talk about is Ultra Parry. This one is frankly insane. Get rid of some of your less useful cards or gauge for the ability to simply decimate your opponent's hand. This will work best when you're forced into fighting at close range, where normals hold the most sway. This isn't the time for me to rant on about how important normals can be, so I'll just say that the chance to eliminate run, backstep, and sweep and focus against characters that either lack mobility or defensive tools is a victory in and of itself. It also serves to stop blocks and readings in the late game, and lessens the chances of being surprised by an EX attack. You'd think Ken would be the one to get the hypest parry and exceed though. Before concluding, I'd like to present my 3-step method for playing Chun-Li on the ground floor. While I believe this overview will hold true for most matchups, it is not a be-all end-all. Use this as a starting guide of sorts, and then improve upon it yourself with experience, matchup knowledge, and suboptimal decision-making based on what cards are in your hand at the time. Step 1, or the early game, is all about exceeding as fast as possible. Play your boosts, get into position, and line up easy hits to earn multiple gauge. Don't worry about trading down too much here, as long as you get your gauge and don't get blown up too badly. You'll make up for any life disadvantage soon enough. Step 2 is after you've exceeded. Consider it the mid-game, though thanks to your boosts you can reach it after only one hit. This can result in quite a power spike in your favor, especially against other characters with weak starting sides or gauge-hungry kits. Honestly, your strategy here will be the same as in Step 1, though your amount of options will vastly increase. The extra range you now have will mean you can create unbeatable strikes even more easily and get in uncontested hits. This will help you to get back that life lead. You should still be earning oodles of gauge, which should now be spent on keeping your distance, upping your damage with criticals, and preparing for lightning leg loops. Honestly, Step 3 isn't too much different than Step 2. Keep boxing your opponents out and dance outside their range as much as possible. Try to never end your turn at a distance more advantageous to your opponent than you. As for closing games out, Chun has a few different gimmicks to use that make up for her lack of high damage or execution finisher. I mean, Hasanka can be great, yeah, but it's a little overpriced and connected to Ultra Parry. Set Ultra Parry, Parry, and Reading, in conjunction with her UA, can help get rid of blocks or dangerous EX attacks. As for unique boosts, Faultless Focus's stun immunity can guarantee a high damage attack, whatever its speed, and Overhead will nullify block and any other armored strike they use to survive. And that's my overview of Chun-Li. It's a little longer than I originally intended it, but hopefully it still contains some great information to get you started with the world's strongest woman. As for some insight into her skill floor, I think she's going to be one of the harder characters in Street Fighter Exceed for newcomers to pick up and play effectively. She has a pretty uniform game plan, sure, but it'll take good footsie play and card knowledge to know when your strikes are safe and when they're not. Her low damage also means she'll have to win quite a few strikes to come out on top, so she does pretty poorly in the more rock, paper, scissors only style of play that characterizes anyone's first few games. Even so, there are certainly harder characters throughout all of the seasons, so don't let this scare you if you're a Chun main looking to master her ASAP. So, what did you think of this video format? Please let me know in the comments. I'm currently planning on doing this with the rest of the Chun-Li box, but if there's a character you most want to see me do, make it known, and I'll more than likely jump them up to the front of the queue. Until my next guide, see you later.